Hi everyone, this is Joe with the Newburgh Chandler Public Library in the Teen Department, and I've got another arts and crafts video for you today. Now, if you're looking at the video, you probably already have an idea of what this is going to be about, because I've got these books up here, and also the title of the video does kind of give it away, but today we're going to be learning about art journals. Now, the kits for this program series will be available sometime starting in early November. You can pick up yours from the Teen Department at the Bell Road Library. These, as usual, are going to be first come, first serve. We're only going to have a limited amount, but also everything supplied in the kits will be something that is readily available either in your house or at a local crafts or supply shop. So don't worry, you will also be able to participate even if you don't have a chance to come down to the library. But without further ado, let's get started.
What's an art journal?
So the first thing that you might be wondering is, what is an art journal? And really, they can take a bunch of different forms. I've seen art journals that are mostly typography and fancy writing. I've seen ones that are based in collage, ones that are mini paintings all on their own. They kind of range the gamut from sketchbooks and idea books all the way to where I want to put some finished ideas before I put those ideas onto a bigger canvas to I just want to cut out a picture and paste it in my notebook so I can remember it later and think about it. The point really is, you can personalize these in a myriad of ways. They're really, really fun, and they're a really good way to gather together inspirations and things that you enjoy looking at, just to have them all in the same place. And there's really a benefit to having that tactile thing, especially right now when it's so easy for me to keep thousands of photographs on my phone, but what if I want to actually look at those photographs? So it's a tangible media, and I think tangible mediums can be really, really fun to work with.
What can I put in my art journal?
There's a bunch of different things that you can put in an art journal. Kind of like I already said, you can either use it as a sketchbook or as a journal. You can use it to test out different materials, different new tools. You can use it to track a travel project or something that you're working on. I've seen ones that are mainly collages. I've seen ones that are mainly writing. It's entirely up to you.
What tools should I have?
Recommended tools for art journals can be as simple as a notebook, a pen, some clear tape, maybe a glue stick, and an interest in capturing things around you. So you can start something pretty complex just by drawing things or by adding little bits of color and learning how to use different sorts of markers. It's really up to you. But the basics I would suggest would be a pen, a pencil, a notebook to work in, a glue stick, or some clear tape, or both really, and then an interest or a theme of something that you want to have and put in your book.
How do I start?
So starting an art journal can be a little daunting, I'm not gonna lie there, and that's kind of why I'm including something that will help you get some ideas for different themes. I've got one that's cooking and recipe stuff. I've got one that's ideas that I want to stash back away for later because I'm also an artist and I love to draw in my daily life. I've got ones that are just flowers and gardens and things that I like to see out in the world. Stuff that I notice when I go on a walk, things that I notice when I go traveling, all that sort of stuff. You start by picking somewhere to start, and it can be as specific or as general as you would like it to be. It's entirely up to you.
Where can I find more resources about art journals?
Further resources and learning more about art journals, aside from just what I'll talk about in these videos, I definitely recommend coming to your library, and we do have a few books in our collection that kind of talk about this. 3 of the ones I have up here are more on hand binding your own books and putting your own books together, and I think that's a really fun way to make something a super personal project where you have picked out all the parts of it, you've put this book together, and now you're going to put more art in it, and I really love that. But we also have a couple copies of a book called Journal It, and Journal It I've found to be super, super beneficial while researching for this program because it shows probably 25 or more different artists and their types of art journals and the sort of things that they like to do. Okay, so inside your program kit, you'll see that you have a few different things, and what I'm going to show you about today is how I've put together the book covers that are included in your kit. So what you'll probably have is something that looks a little bit like this, a rough square with a duct tape along the back. It won't have anything like this on it. It will be completely clean. This is made by cutting a 12 by 12 inch piece of chipboard down. Now you can also use things like cardboard, the box from a cereal. If you have old hardcover books that are damaged and you want to reuse the covers in that works really well. But also this is a pretty reliable way to just make a simple cover that you can then put in your basic binding or things like that. The other part is for binding your books. Now I've made a little tester here to kind of show how this might start looking when you start adding some things in. A lot of these are still blank because I haven't messed around with this too much, but something that you might notice is that it's not sewn. Most books traditionally are sewn or glued. The pages are sewn or glued to the spine of the book, and usually in something called a signature, which is a sheaf of an amount of pages that have been stitched along the folded edge of them. Instead, here we are doing something that's a lot more modular and it's a lot easier to customize it and to add and remove things as you want. We are using rubber bands. So in your kit, you'll have a blank book cover rather. It'll be taped up. The tape will be random colors, and you'll also have a set of plain rubber bands that you can then use to start your book binding. First things first though, and if you ever want to make one of these on your own or you want to see the technique that I've used to create this book cover, I'm going to show you that now. I'm starting with pretty simple materials. I have a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of chipboard. Chipboard is like a thin cardboard. It's not corrugated. It doesn't have the little wavy lines in it, but it is a very thick paper. It's not something that you can run through a printer or anything like that. Chipboard comes in a few different colors. Here in the library we have brown, we have black, and we have white. So I decided to use a piece of white to show you how this got put together. Now, the first thing that I always want to remember, and I always want to remind you, is that you need a work surface. Especially if you're using anything sharp, you're going to want a way to protect the table, whatever's underneath it. Absolutely get an adult to help you if you're working with sharp things. Or have an adult or guardian or parent put together this first part if you ever want to do this all on your own. However, this is only if you're trying to use something that won't fold easily without having a cut in it. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this in half and make a couple of thin slices that don't go all the way through so I can at least bend this without it folding in a weird way. But first things first, we have our work surface. We have a couple of rulers that I know this is 12 inches by 12 inches. So if I line up the mark for the 6-inch, mark on the line for 6 inches, I'll know that the 0 is basically in the middle, and that's important. The next thing I'm also going to want is a pencil. You could also use a pen. Be sure to, if you're using something that has like a colorful side and a plain side, that you are making marks on whatever side is going to be on the inside of your book instead of the outside. But for this, I'm going to make a mark at 0, and then I'm also going to make a mark at these 1/2-inch parts to give me a little 1-inch. This right here is going to be about 1 inch wide. And then I'm going to flip this over. Do the same thing over here. Make sure that we're all lined up and we're straight. Good to go. Mark on that center line, and then 1/2 inch out in each direction from the center line. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to do a 90-degree turn, and I'm going to note where these two lines are. And what I want to do here is I want to line up my ruler so that my two little middle notches there are just along the edge of the ruler, so that when I draw my pencil along, I'll then see where the halfway mark is between those two. Then I'm also going to take this And I'm gonna make another little notch at 0. And then we're gonna turn it back this way. Find that little 0 notch. Make sure that everything is lined up correctly. You don't want this to be crooked. I mean, it's okay if it has a little deviation. It's not gonna be the end of the world or anything like that. So the next thing that I want to do is I've kind of denoted where these fold lines are going to be. So now I want to I'm going to turn this again because I'm going to cut down here. Now there's a few different ways you can cut down here. You can probably use scissors. What I like to use is a rolling paper knife or some other sort of wheel cutter, or if you have a paper cutter or something like that, it might work there. This is definitely something that you would want to have an adult help you with because this is working with a sharp object. So definitely don't do this on your own. Please be safe. Please be safe whenever you're working with sharp things. So that's the other thing too, is I'm gonna use a ruler to help me guide my cutting wheel here. And I want to make sure that my ruler is along that line in a way that I feel comfortable with. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect. It'll just help. And then I'm going to keep my fingers out of the way. And I'm gonna see if I can get a nice line going here. I feel like you could probably do this with scissors, but now that we've done our line, you can see that this folds very smoothly. It didn't cut through all the way, so at this point we can use a pair of scissors, or we can use this cutting wheel again, something like that, to finish off our trim here. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see if I can turn this over, and I'm going to see if I can carefully cut down this middle line from the other side so it's just nice and clean. Let's see if that got us to the money. Yes, it did. Beautiful. There's a little bit of scrap edge here. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. And then we have 2 pieces that we can use for our next thing. So now that we've trimmed our chipboard sheet, there we are, into these 2 boards, these can make 2 journals, 2 covers. You could also just use 1 big sheet, and that would be really fun too. But in this case, I want to make something that's a little smaller, because we want to make lines along these 2 outside marks that mark an inch width. There's an easier and less cluttered way for me to phrase that. I don't know what it is right now, but in general, we're gonna make a pair of marks that we have a 1-inch wide band on this board, and this is gonna make for our folds. Instead of cutting all the way through, we're just gonna wanna make enough of a cut that we can fold this. So I'm just gonna go a couple of times and then move over. And go a couple of times again. Probably come back here and just hit it one more time and make sure that's good to go. And yeah, that's good enough. Put that shield back on, and now you should be able to do a little fold. If you have to force it, then it needs to be trimmed a little more than it currently is. Run this one more time. Go over here. Run this one more time. Make sure to keep your fingers out of the way if you're using any sort of knife ever. And there we are. That folds a lot more smoothly now. And go over here. Now, something that you'll notice is that it is starting to break on this side a little, and then this is where our duct tape comes into play. So I have some pretty tape. I'm not sponsored by duct tape. This is just cool tape that we have in our storage, and I wanted to use it. Okay, so it's kind of a rough estimate on how long of a strip you want, but what you want to do is take this and not have it folded over completely, because you do want it to be able to, we'll get that part in a minute. And we're going to take our tape, and we're going to try our best to lay it down so that it is on the middle of that seam, like so. And then kind of make sure these 2 covers have some fold to them. Press down a little bit and press it onto the side And you can kind of like pinch along this edge. Repeat the same over here. Press on the side, pinch along the edge a little bit, and now that should fold a little more easily. Then we'll come back in here and we'll just press that down and in. That's okay. Sometimes art and making stuff is just really messy, and that's just kind of how it goes. And that is a fact of creating anything. But now you can see we have this pretty nice little book cover going on here. It's not like perfectly straight, and it's also not perfectly even. That's absolutely okay. That's gonna happen. But what we can do now is we can put rubber bands onto this strip here and start putting in some papers. And in our next video, I'm gonna show you how we're gonna start decorating this. So I hope that you enjoyed this program. Part 2 and part 3 will be coming out in the next few weeks. Part 2, we're going to talk about some different ways to decorate our art journals, and in part 3, we're going to talk about collecting things around us and using things in our environment. I'm really excited for this, and I hope that you enjoy it too. Bye!